Testing, testing. It's the work.
Sort of.
Sort of.
You're audible.
Oh, your mic. Your mic looked like it was stuck on, but it just stopped being stuck.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm just testing. Is my mic fine or
Yeah, it's fine.
not?
You're a bit muffled.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm not sticking around for the meeting then. I'm not becoming a speaker.
Yeah, you're understandable. It's just sounds like you're talking to an AirPod or something.
Oh yeah, I'm talking to my Bluetooth. Theo.
Yeah, that makes sense then. You can hear
Gotta sock up your nose, mate.
the Bluetooth compression. Okay, so I guess we'll start in a few minutes. Just let people arrive.
If you've never listened to any of them before, don't be surprised. They're less professional than you expect. They're pretty off the cuff with these things.
FYI, I'm just remote, so I might not respond to like questions that are asked or anything.
Yeah, it's all good. I don't think we're taking questions today anyway.
Okay, I guess we can get this going. So yeah, welcome guys. 160 people here. That's a good turnout. Better than our dev meetings, but that's to be expected. They're a bit boring in comparison, I guess. Yeah, so we used to do these kinds of community meetings quite some years back. They were on IRC in a text-based form. I don't know if we ever did voice meetings. If everyone might be able to remember that better than me.
No, I don't think we did.
Yeah, but we used to have IRC chat-based meetings, and it was back in a time when the community was a lot smaller, so we could actually have everyone that wanted to participate, freely chatting in the meetings, and somehow we managed to get forward progress made. That's probably not really feasible, even judged with the number of people that have turned up this time, to have everyone talking at once. So, but the idea is that to create an ongoing discussion between, in quotations, the OS team and the community, just to keep everyone on the same page and hopefully smooth out some discussions or changes before they go live, give people the chance to voice concern. yeah, so I've got some talking points, which I'm gonna kind of go over. Ephemeral, Smokey, feel free to interrupt me if you have anything to add. But yeah, so we've just hit 14 years, I think, a day or two ago. So that's pretty cool. Yay for us. That's a long period of time, I have to say. Like I'm not one to count numbers or anything, but yeah, it's really getting on, isn't it?
It's a full goddamn grown child. It's a little bit more than
Yeah,
just.
yeah. As some people were saying, it's older than themselves or siblings at this point. Yeah,
Scary.
so like just to, set the stage and get everyone on the same page, because I know a lot of people in the community have, joined within the recent years and don't really have a full understanding of how us was uh incepted and how it's run. You know, I've never really run this game for personal gain. It started as a hobby project, and I'm generally like I still am 100% committed to this project, or like maybe 300% committed if you uh go that far. But it's never been for personal gain, and I'm here for the journey. And I think most of the team can agree with that sentiment. Like none of us here um yeah, doing it for money or for fame or anything else. It's about the love of rhythm games and the love of the community, which has developed over the years. And well, that community has changed and morphed and grown a lot. I think there is still a lot of good in the community, and a lot of people, I get a lot of like I get about 30 to 50 emails a day from people just giving feedback, and the overwhelming majority is really positive. Like people mentioning really good experiences they've had in the community, people they've met in the community, like how invaluable us has been to them to get through dark times, all this really positive stuff. So while like looking at the social feeds like Twitter and Reddit, there is a lot of negativity voiced about, ongoing perceived issues. I think we're still going in the correct direction. I think everyone can agree with that.
Yeah, I think so too. It is important to note with stuff like Twitter and Reddit, though, is that those parts of the community tend to be very engaged, vocal people that tend to care more than most. I think a lot of people kind of surface skim on us a little bit and just check in every couple of months. And to them, I think what we're doing is pretty great. They get a game that works for free and has no strings attached to it or anything. But for some of our long term people who've been around for a while, that sentiment can change a bit. So I think it can be a little bit important. It could be, it's quite important, sorry, to remember that when factoring in things like Reddit and Twitter.
Yeah. And exactly. And when someone that does actually have knowledge of systems or a very, pointed opinion about how something should be done, it's very easy for that to like, snowball and for people to jump on that being like, yeah, that sounds right. And potentially gaining traction in a wrong direction or a direction which just doesn't make sense from our perspective. And then, if we make a change different to what that public voice perceptive opinion is, people start to, call us out for not doing what the community wants or whatever. Um, yeah, so that's kind of where we are coming from with these meetings, to give anyone and everyone a chance to um, voice themselves and do it in a forum which isn't Twitter or Reddit, just something which is both casual, ongoing, and very direct with us and the community. If you want to view it that, I mean, I still could just consider myself one person in the community. I don't see myself as admin or anything. I have to take on that role, obviously, but yeah. Okay, so where am I? Yeah, for the first half of Oz's lifetime, I guess, Ephemeral, correct me if I'm wrong, we basically we were very micromanaging, well, myself for the first few 3 4 years, very micromanaging the community. I had basically, you know, visibility of every beat map which went through the ranking process. I wrote the PP systems myself. It was um, things have changed over the years, but it's important to have that kind of context where we used to be a lot more involved as the us team or whatever. Ephemeral also, like, even after I wasn't able to keep up with the whole bitmap ranking process, Ephemeral and some other team members would still be like, it was our goal to actually provide feedback to maps and make sure we got through all the incoming maps, not leaving some behind. It was like we wanted 100% coverage up until some point, right?
Yeah, man,
Like,
those were dark days. Holy shit.
the days
Fuck,
when
man, that's ages, dude.
Beatmap, yeah, everything was done on forums, and we were always like, there's over one page of forum threads which don't have responses. Let's get on that kind of thing.
Or
That's
the
the kind of where we came from.
or having
They go,
like pages of maps in the forums with bubbles, like hitting 2 pages of bubbles and people were freaking out.
yep.
Oh man, so
So,
long ago.
so things have obviously changed from there, and I think we have like lost a lot of visibility, both as a team and I think even as a community member wanting to look at pending maps and that kind of thing. There's just so much throughput these days that it's impossible to get 100% coverage on anything.
Yeah, people keep falling through the cracks and it's not great.
Yeah, that doesn't just go for beat maps. That was just one example I used because I'll go into my next point, which is kind of like why I decided to do these meetings again. But yeah, to summarize, like the over the years, the community has become a lot more complex, nuanced. A lot of the systems as well, the ranking criteria, all these rules we have in place where coming into us as a new player or a new mapper or a new whatever, there's a lot to take in. And it may seem like a bar too high for many, even for like the dev side of things and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, yes.
It is pretty huge. I think the ranking criteria is probably the biggest example of that.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know where to begin with that these days. Like, if I was a new mapper coming in nowadays and I had to sit down and read it, it's practically a fucking essay, right?
Yeah.
Like a full-on technological essay with like its own glossary and terms that people tend to have differing definitions of between themselves in the mapping and modding community. Sometimes it's quite complicated.
Yeah, and so the recent example and kind of why these meetings are happening now is that it's not the first time, and you could call it strawberry the camel's back or whatever. But I made a change to the way source metadata rules work, um, and it was an objectively well, to us it was a change which is objectively correct. But the wording for that change that I made wasn't as clear as it should have been. That might have contributed to it, but like a lot of the responses we get, and this is not just this case. It happens a lot. Uh, the most common retorts are like, Peppy's out of touch, or Peppy's not pro enough in the case of talking about PP, or there's always this group of the community that says like the like X team members shouldn't have control over X because they don't know what they're talking about. So I figure like having these meetings is a good way for those people, if they so choose. Obviously, that's a big
If
if. If they so choose, can come and actually talk through these issues with us before we make them live, and we'll kind of make these community meetings something where we bring these things up before we make a change, even if it's a 100% like we are going to make this change. We'll voice it in the meeting, maybe to get a bit of quick feedback, or at least to let people know the direction we're taking. Yeah, yeah.
we
So
should probably set up a text channel for this as well at some point, shouldn't we? Like when we're
yeah,
having
for
these meetings.
sure. For pasting things into and whatnot. We'll get the structure of this working better going forward. This is kind of like I haven't had that much time to set this up. I would like to have. Can you do screen share in these? You can't, can you?
No, I don't think so. Screen
Yeah,
share to like 250 people on Discord.
right. Um, so it would be good to have like some kind of document or some kind of screen share set up where people can see what like our meeting notes, and we can, you know, share things there, polls and stuff. But this time, yeah, as I said, it's just to like set the stage and get everyone on the same page, and hopefully get more people interested in turning up to these meetings on an ongoing basis. So the gist of these meetings is that we'll be running them every 2 weeks as long as people are still interested. The time slot is going to be the same as it is now. We may move it depending on feedback. Let us know if this is like way out of your time zone. We might be able to change it a bit, but this was chosen because I don't know, I work with a lot of people in different time zones, and generally my early mornings works well for the majority of people. So yeah, and we're going to try and limit these to 1 hour long. Hopefully less than that rather than more. If we hit 1 hour, we'll have like a 10-minute summarizing period and leave it there, because I don't want them to drag on forever. Previously, when we had community meetings, they went for like 5 hours at a time sometimes, and at a point we just decided like we need to limit this, otherwise you don't get get to reach any answers. Everyone's just
Even the
like,
staff ones were like, what, they go for like 3 hours sometimes, I think.
yeah, even our internal discussion threads go for like, damn me, don't get me started.
Oh boy.
Some of the things we discuss behind the scenes go on for days or weeks, and it's just I don't think it's too productive. I think it's more productive if you set a time limit and everyone's like has a sense of urgency to an extent.
Yeah, I think so too.
Okay, and there's no real structure, so I intentionally want to keep these meetings very casual. Obviously we'll have an introduction for each one and let people know what the general talking points are, but also want to let people jump in with anything the community sees as an ongoing issue or a new issue which has come up since the last meeting, or whatever you want to say. It will let anyone talk, try and get a verified status on the server if you actually want to jump in, just so we have some means of determining who is serious. But and obviously this guy is not serious. One sec while I found someone.
Just another
Um,
day in the life.
Someone just jumps in with the penis. Okay. So yeah, and we're going to be sharing high-level updates from myself and the rest of the team. Maybe giving more visibility where we weren't previously. Like I find it personally, I share a lot on Twitter, but Twitter is, as we've discussed, a very it's a hard place for developers to share feedback. I think it's just to share information of any kind, because the feedback you get is overwhelmingly negative or meme. Oh my god, meme filled. It's very hard to filter through. So I think this could work. And yeah, the overall goal is to make the team more directly approachable again, because I think we used to be, and that's kind of fallen out. Or at least it's perceived that that's not the case. Like I still answer, 50 plus emails a day. So I'm constantly talking to people, but those emails don't get shared to other people. So it's a very personal thing. And I think, yeah, having something like this where everyone is listening and able to jump in is good. Cool. So that's all I had to say for the intro. Getting involved. So as I touched on, everyone, the idea is to give anyone a chance to talk. Um,
Except
and
today.
well, yeah, we'll see how we go time wise. Got quite a bit to get through, I guess. Oh, I actually already went over most of these points. Cool.
Yeah, this is definitely a meeting, isn't it?
But if you do have something to say, try and plan it ahead of time. Don't just jump in and be like, I'm trying to summarize what you want to say, and if possible, like pre-vet it with anyone you know in the community. Like if you have something which you think is important, which you perceive as important, an important issue that is affecting a large portion of the community, maybe check with a few people to make sure it's not just you um, that is having the issue. Like, we're interested in tackling things which affect more than just one person, if that makes sense.
That might sound like an obvious thing to say, but you'd be surprised how often people bring up things and it generally only really applies to their specific case. Happens a
Yeah,
lot.
or a very small group of people. And that goes with like the development side of things as well. We get a lot of like feature requests or bug reports where it's clear this is only going to be affecting like 0.001% of the population. And when we already have very limited dev time and time in general, sometimes it's not feasible to handle every single case like that. So if you're unsure, you can still voice yourself on the meetings and just be prepared to be shut down. Like we don't want to dwell on issues which aren't too important. We'll just move on in that case. Yeah.
Good stuff. So, what do we want to start with topics wise?
Yeah, so I had a few written down for this meeting, but it's more like general, just high level stuff where going over the current directions of systems. Obviously, the ranking criteria is one, difficulty and performance points, PP, ongoing changes. Just want to touch on that because that has been an area of focus recently. And just the ongoing development of stable laser us future, where we are, where we're going. So yeah, where should we start? I mean, I had these in a rough order, which is ranking criteria first. I've already kind of touched on the issues I saw with that, or ephemeral has as well. It's like it's way too complicated for a map to get in. The other thing which came up recently was quite a few Mania mappers or people in the VSRG, the vertically scrolling rhythm game communities, whether that be us or a different community, find it hard to approach us, and this has been an ongoing. It's nothing new. Our ranking criteria is very stringent compared to other games, which usually don't even have any ranking criteria. There's no such system existing. So to give a bit of historical context there, like when I started developing us, I was playing like DJ Max. I was playing a lot of BMS simulators over the years, DDR. I was like, um, I had a pretty good scope of the whole VSRG scene, a lot more than I do these days, obviously. But one of the main things I perceived when actually playing those games was that a lot of the content was really low quality. Like it wasn't timed correctly, or the maps just sucked, and there was no central means of enforcing or even rating quality of maps. So that's like where this whole ranking system came from, right? The beatmap submission system, all this centralizing stuff where it's probably not in my best interest to have people upload content which they potentially don't have licensing over. Um, the whole point behind that was to get some kind of quality guidelines in place. And yeah, it's easy to forget that that's where we started. But yeah, over the years, ranking criteria has obviously evolved. And I think Ephemeral can touch on it better than I can, how it has become more complex over the last few years as people try to avoid conflict by making the rules so stringent that we don't need to have the conflict in the first place. Do you want to talk about that, or?
Kind of. How do I phrase it? I think there's always been a bit of friction in the modding and mapping scenes where I think some people view the ranking criteria as kind of like a don't do this and you'll get a baseline acceptable map, and then some people want that criteria then to extend to the point where if you follow the ranking criteria in full, you will always get a good map out of it. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? Am I making sense?
yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I think there's definitely two opinions there.
So then, at the moment, we're definitely in a part, at least in OS-wise, as far as I can see, where people are kind of very keen to deregulate things. They're keen to have the ranking criteria is just kind of like a very basic mechanical expectation of, if a particular pattern or anything like that is extremely broken and stupid and everyone hates it, then it should be in there. It like definitively breaks gameplay, that kind of thing. And that's
Yeah,
kind of where we're
definitely.
at with that. So I don't think that's necessarily the case for other game modes, and that's where that's cropped up recently in Mania in particular.
Yeah. So wait, you're saying for us rule set, uh, which side are you saying we're leaning towards? The
The
anything
deregulation
goes?
side, yeah, I
Okay.
think we're looser at the moment than we have been in the
Yeah.
past with it,
And
and
it's
we
been
need to
kind of
keep.
like it's been a very moving goal, hasn't it? Like we've gone in both directions over the years.
Yeah, you can kind of, if you look at the modding and mapping history article on the wiki, you can kind of see where the community is sort of like shifted back and forth from wanting more from the RC and then wanting less from it. And it's been
Yep.
reflected in the leadership structures for sure. Like during the QAT days, it was really, really like, it was being constantly held to all the time, very, very strictly enforced, and people were like getting very riled up over it because it was like stifling mapper freedoms, basically. I mean, people use
Yeah.
that as a meme term now, but it was a very salient point back in those days. It was very hard to do something different.
It was. Yeah.
So I think what we're encountering at the moment is that Mania is now having that problem where they're saying that the reason why, I think this originally came up in a graveyard thread, right? Because there's that big graveyard thread going on the forums at the
Yep.
moment. Yeah, and people are saying, all these Mania mappers are coming on and going like, "Holy shit! If can we get some more slots in the graveyard so we can upload maps?" And then we're asking like, Why can't you rank the maps? Like, the idea is that if you're uploading a map, you're supposed to try and get it ranked. And then they're going, "Oh, well, because the ranking criteria is a bunch of shit and stops us from
Yeah,
getting
and like
any of our stuff right."
I have no interest in the ranking system. I just want to have my maps, and from my angle, that's like really back to front.
Yeah,
Like
that's
it
like
says
oh
that we have an
shit
issue.
territory.
Yeah,
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 it's a big problem. So that needs to be fixed. And a couple of prominent members in the community, in the Osmania community, have already put up some ranking criteria proposals to try and fix that. Actually,
yep,
one of them involves relaxing spread requirements, and the other involves removing the hit sound addition requirements. Because I think overall, I don't think hit sounding is used very much in Osmania. Like key sounding is, but it's a completely different skill set. But
yeah,
I'm not an Osmania pro though. I'm kind of just like rehashing what I've seen other people say. But it's definitely a common theme that those two things in particular are especially throttling out the high level Osmania mapping scene, which is why the graveyard is so heavily utilized for them.
for sure. And hit sounds is like probably the most subjective one, and the one which I probably have the most to say. But I think I still want to get my thoughts together on that because I do think there's ways we can improve that from the development side of things.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but yeah, like the hit sound one has already been, I guess, gotten pretty unanimous agreement on. So that's already been PR'd to the wiki, so it's ready to go. And yeah,
That one's been interesting for ages.
yeah, it's a so exactly as you say, like I guess key sounding is what people call it, where it's actually giving moving a lot of the song into the keys. um, to make it more feel like you're playing a piano or an instrument. And that takes a
Yeah,
lot more effort to implement. And then there's hit sounding, which is applying the standard OS, normal, whistle, finish, clap sounds to hit objects. And the reason why uh, that isn't done in Mania is I think there's two reasons. One is that mappers from other games just either don't have hit sounds turned on and they're like this is stupid, or no, there's three things. So they're either this is stupid, this takes effort, or they are this sounds bad. And I can agree with the third one that this sounds bad because if you have quite complex Mania maps where you have a lot of hit sounds or
a lot of
simultaneous
notes on
keys,
screen. Yeah, it's like this.
yeah, yeah, and
Isn't
that's the part where I think we can improve things. I think we can do some audio techniques to improve how the game plays sounds back, and maybe how mappers place the sounds so they're not so they have the option of not mapping against individual keys, but mapping against the song overall. Like, as in, if you have four keys at the same point in time, you would be just specifying clap for that time point rather than nodes. And this is how a lot of mapping is done in Mania using external tools.
Yeah,
Uh,
which is also
hit,
fucked. You got to admit.
yeah, well, yeah, sure. People make a separate difficulty called hit sounds, and they put the hit sounds in that difficulty. Then they use a tool to apply that to each of the difficulties. So that's like something that we can definitely improve things from the development end, and as we'll
And
get to
just
with
to be clear for everyone, this would be Lazer stuff, not stable specifically, right?
yes,
Yeah, like well, we're not
yeah.
gonna
So I was
be
just about to
changing
say,
much in stable. It's all gonna be Lazer stuff.
yeah, as
Otherwise,
as
we'd
I'll
be
get
fixing it
into with the
twice.
yeah, but laser editor as well. So we would still make it backwards compatible with stable. So you could make maps in laser editor, benefit from these UX improvements, and export them back.
Ah, that's important. So that's a lot more short term than just expecting it to be like, oh, you can only do this in Laser.
For sure, yeah. At
Yeah,
least
okay.
that's the goal. I mean, the amount of effort it takes to get to that goal is moving target, as some people in here, Smoogie, and I don't know if is Spaceman here. He said he was going to come.
It's pretty late
And
Europe, isn't it?
yeah, the overhead of having compatibility with stable can be quite tough at times. But for now, we're making that happen, because the idea is that the laser editor is already in a very good state. There's a few features missing, but for the feedback I've heard from people that have used it, they are very positive. The general user experience of it is a lot better already, and if we fix up those last few things, I think a lot of mappers going to be like pushing to only map on laser and pushing to get more like bitmap submission features in. So where did we start on this tangent? We were talking about hit sounds.
It was just ranking criteria stuff, I think.
Yeah, and difficulty spread. So difficulty spread has actually changed over the recent months, right? Or not recent months, but in the last year, there were changes made to it to relax that,
A
right?
little bit, I think, in Mania anyway. I don't know about. I
On
don't
the
think
OS
it's
side,
changed. Has it changed offside? I don't think it has. I think it's still pretty
maybe it was like 2 years ago where we made it
three,
so you
maybe.
maybe time goes fast, where we made it so you could have like maps with single difficulties and stuff
I think
where
that's
that
about
wasn't
two.
feasible. Yeah. So I think a lot of that those changes either haven't propagated to the Mania criteria, or haven't been the Mania mappers haven't been made aware that this is the case now, because things are a lot more lenient than they used to be. That's what I'm trying to
I
get at.
think generally speaking is that the modes are meant to operate independently of one another. Like the NAT certainly operate independently of one another. So I don't think any spread changes for OS tend to shift over to OS Mania. That's
Right.
probably yeah.
Okay. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, we have some organizational problems in AT side at the moment that need to be addressed pretty badly. And that's kind
Sounds
of a
like
symptom of them.
that should be in a shared portion of the ranking criteria, not per rule set.
I think it's a bit difficult to do that though, because the different modes tend to have like different cutoff points for particular
Mm,
spread ranges and stuff.
yeah. If we can generalize some of these rules to be applied. I don't know how important are these cutoffs? Can't we just take all of them and average them out or something, and make the idea is to simplify things where we can. So that's the kind of direction I'd see as potentially
Maybe
being what
you
we
get the
want.
general idea of why mappers don't like spread rules, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like most of them
Well,
don't want to map full sets for things.
exactly. They don't want to map the easies or the normals. They're like, well, this song or my mapping techniques don't work for normals, so they either have to find a guest difficulty mapper, or they just give up on ranking.
Then most of them just give up on ranking. And then you have specific situations with Osmania, for example, where like if you don't map a easy normal hard on Os, you just don't have an easy normal hard. But on Osmania, you can technically have that strata of players that would normally consume those maps use convert mods instead, which is kind of an iffy thing because people have very strong opinions about the convert stuff that we have in stable currently.
Does the do the convert mods work for Mania to Mania? It does, doesn't it?
I think so. I really don't play it, so I don't know. But what I mean is like you can
I thought maybe it didn't. Let me just check. But yeah, either way, convert mods like destroy maps.
they
So
do, yeah. So
I don't think they're a valid option there.
yeah,
Oh my
I've heard some.
god. I just started ours and it played at like ear deafening volume. 1 second while my ears recover.
I have heard some arguments about people saying, "Oh, I shouldn't have to map easy normal hards because there's other easy normal hards, or there's convert mods that new players can play." And I've mapped I've mapped for O's. So I can understand not wanting to do a full set because it's a lot of fucking work. It's a huge amount of work, honestly. Like mapping that kind of stuff is pretty dry and boring for most mappers, and they want to do you know, I feel like the general approach to mapping is, at least from my experience, most people go in with a top diff or a highest level difficulty in mind, and they make that difficulty, and then everything else is kind of just obligation that they do if they want to get the map ranked.
Yeah, yeah, that can sum up some mappers. I
I
know I
don't know if
definitely
it's
wasn't.
some. I feel like it'd be most these days, to be honest.
Yeah,
It's a huge amount of work. Like I'm talking like 10, 20 hours or more in some cases.
yeah,
It's a lot of work.
yeah. I know. When I was mapping, yeah, I guess you do always start with the hardest map that you can map and
Yeah,
work
and
back from
then
there. That's the most sensible way. Um, yeah, so you can use convert mods for Mania, Mania first maps, but yeah, I don't know if that's a solution.
which
So
I don't think
yeah,
anyone would suggest that you do that though, because
no,
they're kind of shit.
no. But the reason, yeah, so to go back on the spread rules, the reason we had them from day one was to try and get more people um to like force people to make these easy normal maps, just so people like beginners coming into the game do have that range of difficulties. But I was going to say this earlier, we already have so much existing content in us that like
Yeah, it may not be needed anymore.
exactly, yeah, and that's another reason why I think in general we can relax a lot of the ranking criteria more to, as you mentioned, more of like a baseline, this map makes sense kind of thing and doesn't break the game, rather than this map is
You must
perfect
do
in every
this.
way.
Yeah.
Or perfect subjectively, obviously, because a lot of people don't disagree with it. Yeah. um
That'd be a good first step. We should probably start looking at doing that fully, I think, because there is some confusion still, at least on
yeah,
our end. But that's stuff we can definitely address, I think.
I don't think we have it right now, but it would be good to, at the top of like the ranking criteria, summarizing what they are there for, like a lot more explanation of these kinds of systems, and maybe a statement on on what the ranking criteria is aiming to achieve, like something which has been well thought out and checked by thousands of eyes, that if you read it, you would kind of understand the direction of things. Even without reading the following essay, you would kind of know what is to be expected when
Yeah, I get you. That might already exist somewhere, actually. It just might not be
probably
linked in.
does, yeah. But I mean, just making it part of the ranking criteria document, just as like, because right now it's like a huge list of bullet points
It
separated
is
into
a
different.
gigantic list.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah, making ranking criteria more approachable. I think should be one of our goals. And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
while we're on the subject of the Osmania stuff, as Ephemeral mentioned, this discussion did come up with some Osmania mappers being like, we want more pending slots or more graveyard slots. And I mean, I know that this has been happening over the years. I have visibility mainly via tournaments. A lot of tournaments are using the graveyard as a source of their maps, which is pretty weird. Like, because back in the earlier times, everything in the graveyard was generally a mess. Like there were no completed maps in there. They were mistimed. It was just like a place where people left stuff to die, as it was actually stated in the graveyard's description back when it was on the forums. And I think that that has changed. People are using the graveyard as permanent storage for maps, and that is alarming to me because I actually have a script which I run like once a year, which purges graveyard maps that haven't been accessed in recent times permanently, like deletes them from existence. So from that angle, I think we do need to change the underlying systems there and give people a way of marking maps as not for ranked or something like that, to make it clear that the map is in a playable state but shouldn't be deleted.
People use loved for that currently in kind of a really janky way.
Yes, yeah. But there's still like hurdles you have to get over to get a
A
map
lot of
in
hurdles.
loved.
Yeah. So
So this
that
is more
definitely
of
needs
like
to
a
go in.
general thing where the average user uploading their content can be sure that the content isn't going to be deleted going forward, and maybe gives tournament management an easier way of finding these completed maps which are in a good state, rather than the general hunting through thousands of graveyard maps just to find the ones which are timed correctly.
Yeah, definitely. We should probably move on from this, by the way. I've only got like 20 minutes left till the hour ticks over.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, those are the points I wanted to touch on anyway. That was the last one. Obviously, we're having a very enclosed discussion here, but that's just for the first meeting. So I'm hoping going forward we can get more people involved and get people putting their hand up as you're doing these stage things, and adding to the conversation. But yeah, this is more of just like an overview to give an idea of forward direction. So yeah, that's the ranking criteria, general stuff. Next, let's talk quickly about difficulty and PP. And Smokey may want to jump in for this. I don't know. We've been seeing a lot of very good work coming out of the community with PP changes, especially on the OS rule set, OS mode. The other ones have still been a bit abandoned. But TLDR, we on this dev server where you're on right now, we have channels for each of the game modes, where there are a small group of people working on the development side of PP and statistics, algorithms, getting the difficulty, the star rating and the PP calculations objectively better, or in some cases subjectively better for the community. We pushed out quite a few of those over the recent year or two. Like OS has been in a very quite a dynamic state. Not obviously not as dynamic as we've wanted it to be. Like I think Smoogie has been saying like he'd like to see a change every 1 to 3 months. Is that right? Something like that. But we're trying to push for more of a dynamic system just to keep things moving, keep things interesting. You want to say something, Smoogie?
Not yet.
No?
I mean, it's pretty rough that only us is really getting traction right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Everyone really expects Mania, a lot of Mania improvements, and Mania's gotten the least love of all. So
Yeah,
yeah,
we
This
would
is worrying.
deal
really
with.
like to see more Mania people step up.
Yeah, like I try to kind of maybe motivate people a bit more a few weeks ago, and it kind of just like stopped dead a little bit afterwards again.
Yep. So like for those who aren't aware, a lot of the OS development is community based. We're not like a huge company. We don't really have the resources to do well, we don't have the time resources to handle all the difficulty algorithms and stuff ourselves. So it is up to the community to jump in and help out where they see things not working as quite expected. And yeah, an argument is that like the non-OS modes are much smaller in population, so obviously we wouldn't get as much throughput. But then you do see like a large group of those communities complaining about the existing system. So there is definitely a yearn for improvement there. Yeah, I don't know how we get more people involved there, but
I think the burden's like competency wise, isn't it? Because I mean, like actually making
yeah,
difficulty changes requires some like bullshit sorcery levels of math. Like if you look at any of the
for
PRs, like
sure.
I look at those things and my brain shuts down. Like, it's almost
Yeah, I mean,
incomprehensible.
a typical player is not going to be able to make difficult changes, even though like they may know, everything about the game and what's hard and what's easy and all of that. It's like actually putting those ideas, abstract ideas, into code, which judges it, is a bit of a different concept entirely.
Yeah,
Would it be
but
worth pursuing? This is a really lofty thing. Would it be worth pursuing creating some kind of like framework or simulation toolkit to like let people play with the formulas that in like a way that doesn't require them to explicitly use code, like with a whole
like
bunch of
something
sliders
more
and shit?
visual.
Yeah, something visual, like maybe like a like a laser framework thing where they can just fuck around with a whole bunch of slider things to try and nudge their performance algorithm a different way, and then have that exportable and let people share it between each other. So I mean, that's a big undertaking, obviously, but I feel like that would maybe get people more involved with like rule set difficulty stuff than just having it be solely the domain of people capable of understanding that kind of math.
Yeah, the problem there is that the sliders that you would expose are like, well,
Pretty rigid, yeah. I mean, a lot of the new PRs involve adding new ones, basically, right?
exactly, or completely
Yeah.
changing the underlying structure. So I don't know how productive that would be. It sounds like a cool idea, and maybe get more people involved that way as a starting point. But yeah, it would take some resources to make happen. I mean, someone could jump in and do that. The Lazer's already set up in a way that you could probably make that happen, just like reloading the player each time you change sliders. But I do agree that we should probably make like a set of template maps which um, focus on specific. Do we already have that, Smoogie? I think we discussed that in the past, having a set of OSU files which focus on specific difficulties or specific patterns or stuff, so they can be tested against the existing like command line tools. Just to
We discussed them, but we don't have those yet. No.
yeah, I think that might be a good first step there. Like just uh, getting a group of mappers together or players together to create these template maps, which, rather than having X map, which has like, aim and speed in different places in the map or something, where there's a lot of noise between these different concepts, making it hard to balance. Extracting each of these concepts into their own files so that they can be tested in an isolated manner more easily. That might, if everyone's using these templates rather than existing maps. Obviously, you do need to test the existing maps for like cross pollution of changes and stuff, but could be a good starting point, a good resource to
Yeah,
have.
like one case that came up very recently is like Z jumps, cross screen Z jumps in OS, and that's one case where you just like make a little test map, and you'd see that it's 6 stars when it goes from like 1 beat to 2 beats or something like that spacing. So
Yeah. Yeah. So but yeah, if you are interested in like if someone in the meeting or someone in the meeting knows someone that does have knowledge of these areas. I know, especially in like VSRG, there's a lot of people say like X game does it better than us. And well, if that game does it better, maybe it's worth looking, drawing from that game's concept. And a lot of the other VSRGs which exist these days have, well, some of them. I'm not like trying to take credit or anything here, but they've been born from us or after us's existence, and they are open source as well. So we can like, draw from them as a resource as they have drawn from us, to maybe, collaborate or combine, draw some ideas. The other thing is that, yeah, so this network, we do like a lot of open development, and even if you don't, know how to do code or anything, if you have any math knowledge or just even just discussing general concepts, having more people in the difficulty channels, hopefully not getting too much discussion going on there. It's a hard one, because if you have too many people that don't really know what they're talking about talking in one channel, it just gets impossible to actually make forward progress. But what we're seeing right now is basically zero discussion in the non-OS difficulty channels, and even in the OS one, like I think a lot of the discussion still happens off on different servers. I mean, there's good reason for that, but it would be good to see new people, new faces in these channels, just to try and get more people interested, get more throughput, more eyes on changes which are happening. Or so if you're a member of a Taiko Catch Mania community, maybe just have a browse through the difficulty-Mania channel on this server later on, and have a look at what the discussions have been there over the last months or years. They haven't been that active, as I said, but it would be good to just get some new eyes in there, some new people looking at it. And as for motivating people, yeah, I want to re-mention that we do offer like money bounties on these changes, especially for PP stuff. Like, for instance, all of the recent OS changes, we've been paying out like, 1,000 to 3,000 US for people that have worked on the changes, and like that's like discussed with them how many hours they spent on it and stuff. So we try and compensate for these changes, especially where there's a high bar of skill and effort involved. So if you feel like I feel like you could help there, but don't don't have the motivation, maybe that'll help. For some people, it's like I just want to help with the community. I don't want money. That's a lot of people in Oz, I think, but we do have that there.
We could also look at ways of more like not money involved motivation, like I don't know, badge acknowledgement or titles or
Yeah,
something like that as well.
well, that's
That's
kind of
always not.
implied as well, right? We give out badges where people contribute without them asking for it or
We
anything.
do. It's just community contributor at the moment. I think people might appreciate some more specialized thing.
What's the sort of schedule on community badges? Community contributor
Contributors once a
badges.
year, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe we could accelerate that to twice a year or something.
Because the badge weighting system in tournaments is pretty interesting with that. Hey.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's definitely something to think about as well. I've also been asked to tier community contributor badges as well, like have like different levels. So if you earn it twice, you get like a shinier heart or something. Some people really go for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think we agreed that that might be a good thing to add.
Yeah, we should do that. Make that happen.
Okay.
It's not too complicated.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like the summary for PP stuff. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack there, and it's a different discussion per game, per rule set, per game mode. And we'll touch on that in future community meetings. I'm sure people are going to bring up points about it. But let's move on from there, I think.
Sounds good.
Let's touch on the overall development and Lazer and stuff in the last 10 minutes. So, yeah, where are we? Ephemeral asked me some questions about Lazer. What do you want to know when it's released or anything?
I will ask the question that everyone is asking: when will it replace stable?
Yeah, okay. So the most
Straight
common
up.
questions are uh, when will it be released? When will it replace stable? When can I get PP from it? I guess they all mean kind of the
The
same
same
thing.
thing. Everyone means the same thing. Yes. Like when is it replacing stable refers to all of those things at once.
Yep. So where to start? I really want to do a like video or blog post on this or something to give people more of a general understanding, as I touched on at the start of this meeting. Like, um, us the way I do development and stuff, I try to do things my own way. Not because I just am like fuck the system, but quite often there's a better way to do it than industry standards or whatever you want to call it. So um, us has been like from day one. Back in the early days, I was releasing builds like every day, right? Every day it would be like sliders were added, spinners were added. It was that level of like rapid development cycle. There was no cutting edge, no beta. It was just like straight to your desktop, my changes with no one else looking at them. And that has evolved over the years. We introduced code review and, beta cutting edge streams so we could deal with, the cases where I would fuck up or someone else would fuck up and potentially destroy the game and have to do rollbacks and stuff. We've got things to a pretty good state over the years, but it's also a lot more of a stagnant state. Where am I going with this? A lot of people that have, I think the vast majority of Oz community these days are people that have joined within the last 7, 5, 3 years and don't really have an overview of where we've come from. Being that where we've come from is a very incremental, a very gradual building of this game over a period where everyone has been playing the game and enjoying the game. Call it open development or call it Steam early access or whatever fucked off term you want to use these days. Everyone has their own name for it. That's what we've been doing since day one. And so from that angle, when someone asks me like when is Lazer going to be released, it's a very hard question to answer because we released it, like the first release of Lazer was in 2017 when I said I was going to release it or quit dev or whatever. And then a lot of people are like, haha, if you never release Lazer because it doesn't have PP support. Well, the original game didn't have PP for like 5 years, and even when it did, it was like it was a very different system, and these things have developed over time. And that's kind of what we've been doing with Lazer and my intentions for Lazer as well. We are lucky to have stable and a very uh, a very stable, stagnant, maybe not the right word, community built around stable, which means that we have had this freedom to develop Lazer in the background and do it right and spend our time on it and make sure we don't um, corner ourselves into a place where we don't want to be in terms of development and future possibilities. But that may be seen to many as like I get a lot of people these days being like, Peppy doesn't develop his game, or he people think I just fucking spend my time on a tropical island drinking
Despite streaming like
beer.
8 hours a day
Well, yeah.
and having like top 5
Yeah.
comment count on fucking GitHub.
uh Sure. So hopefully these meetings can be a way to like for me to share, for me and the rest of the team, Smoogie, whoever wants to share our progress, our forward progress, because even though we have like, I regularly tweet the progress of Lazer. We have change logs every week with the weekly releases we do. There's a lot of visibility, but at the same time, the OS community is so large, and a lot of people are so focused on the PP side of things, and they just don't see this, or they're not interested in it. They're not interested in anything that doesn't let them set scores on the leaderboards. Yeah, so that's a long way of answering the question of when it's going to be released. And
So
I didn't
your
answer it at
answer
all.
is no, you did. You answered it. Your answer is essentially it is released, and everything else is going to get added to it incrementally, the same way that it happened
Yeah.
before.
And we're in a very good spot right now. So we we're in a very good spot with Lazer. Like we're at the point where Smoogie and I have both agreed that like we're running out of large tasks to do. I mean, there are if we look through the issues list, there's thousands of things left to do, but the large blockers, which are things that are like we can't enable leaderboards because X, those are gradually going down, and I think they're in like single or double digits now, to the point where we actually have scores submitting. A lot of people may not know that, but Lazer has been submitting scores for the last 5-6 months. They are showing on profiles, and the whole score submission system we have in Lazer is made so we can reprocess those scores. So, for instance, currently Lazer isn't calculating playtime, but once we bring that processor online for playtime, it's going to adjust for all the scores that have been set on Lazer up until now. And same like the PP processor, Smoogie finished that last week, and when that's brought online, it's going to attach PP to all the existing Lazer scores. Now, those aren't going to show on leaderboards yet because the remaining pieces we have of the puzzle are things like anti-cheat, things like compatibility with stable scores and how we're going to manage that, like integration of Lazer and stable into the same leaderboards. Things like, because Lazer is a lot more accessible to mobile platforms, are we going to change the way we handle touchscreen scores, that kind of thing? There's a few remaining questions we have or things we need to talk through or implement and then see how they work and iterate on them until we get to a solution where we can be like, okay, Lazer is ready to permanently send scores to the existing leaderboards. And quite honestly, like that is one goal of many goals we have with Lazer. As I've been saying every time I've had the chance to do so, I don't see the PP and the global leaderboards as being potentially the future of competitive OS. I think we could do an elo system or more of a multiplayer based ranking or things which involve tournament results more, changing the way global leaderboards work. So we have seasonal things like, and we've been working on these systems with Lazer. So we have the playlist system, which is kind of a way of creating these scoped leaderboards where anyone can go in, create a leaderboard, set the beat map, set the mods, set the free mods, and then set a time limit. So 1 month, 3 months. And during that period, anyone can come in and set scores against that leaderboard. And results are created at the end. And you can see ongoing results, obviously. Hoping that we can, expand what the community is interested in terms of competitive gameplay. So that's one of the reasons, I guess, the global leaderboard side of things has taken a back seat. But at the same time, like, I don't think we've hit critical mass with Laser where a lot of players are willing to check it out for the first time. Therefore, these new systems we have haven't really seen as much use as I would like to see on them.
So I want to say something. I
Yep.
already know like one Australian streamer that I watch all the time who literally said that he doesn't want to play Laser because until it's finished, because it feels different and he doesn't want to like it feels better and he doesn't want to like go back to stable. He doesn't want to have like his vision ruined because Laser is just that much better, but it also doesn't have like PP and leaderboards and all of this.
Yep.
So I do think that like sure having like all these different systems to maybe like branch out to the level of competitive play is fine, but I think that like the leaderboards are definitely something that needs to happen as like a relatively high priority instead of this branching out thing.
Yeah, for sure. I wasn't trying to suggest that that's where we should be going. I was more saying that that's some of the reasons why things have taken so long and why I've been putting more effort into these systems. Because I think another way of putting it is I'd want like the playlist system to be there from day one before we have the critical mass of users moving over, just so we have that system in place to give them something new to see, and you know having it there from day one may help get a bit more traction.
In any
Um,
case, it sounds like things are relatively close, like closer than they've
yeah,
been in
yeah,
a
that's
long time,
that's
at least.
mainly what I
Anyway,
wanted to get at here is that we are very close to. It's just it's mostly like infrastructure work that needs to be done. Like anti-cheat is a huge one. Without having the proper validation in place, and it's not just like adding client side stuff. It's also the score submission, all the code and all the systems we have for stable. There's a lot of consistency checks in there and special stuff, edge cases. Like it's literally a 3 to 4,000 line of code file for the score submission process, and it's not the prettiest code either. So I've been working to split that out into individual processes, as we call it, for Laser, and just trying to get some sense into there. But yeah, as you can imagine, to get scores submitted to the leaderboards, the main goal, or the main thing I want to avoid is breaking shit along the way. And not breaking shit takes time. I think that's something which needs to be stressed. Like the reason to move slowly here is to one of the things that that I pride myself on and that a lot of players agree with is that we've kept history in us since day one, right? All the scores that were submitted in 2008, 2007 even, they still exist to this day, and we don't want to destroy that. And that is one of the reasons things does take time. We could, very easily turn on Laser leaderboards today, but they would be separate from stable. And our goal is still to try and combine them where we can. And the best direction we have for that right now is a thing called Classic Mod, which seems to be like a very good direction. I think that was spearheaded by Smoogie actually. It's basically a mod in Laser which uh, changes a lot of the mechanics. It's something we said we weren't going to do originally, but we have done. It changes a lot of the mechanics so Laser acts like classic, like stable. And that means that we have uh, the ability to difficulty calculate against those criteria, against the stable rule set. And it also means that people that come across to Laser and then want to play with they're like, fuck Laser, I don't like accuracy on my slider heads. That's like too hard for me. I don't want to get better at the game. They can turn on the classic mod and they can set that as their preset to play with, and they will be able to set scores as if they were playing unstable. So we've been over the months and the recent months and years in Laser, we've been pushing to resolve all the remaining issues where people have been like, I would play Laser, but X is missing or X is different. Trying to bring all those things back as much as we can.
You
to
should
like
really tell people about that classic thing more. That is like a solution to a lot of problems that I've heard
yeah,
people say.
and like we're kind of seeing that as the forward direction for leaderboards. Like we're gonna have to recalculate every score at some point, including all of the existing scores, all fucking 6 billion or whatever scores in the database are going to need to be recalculated. So we've designed all the new score systems and PP systems with that in mind, that we can actually use all. There's two things in the database. We only have a limited subset of data stored for each score, and that's the stuff that's mostly exposed on the website. The stuff, the 300s, 100s, 50s, miss, max combo, that kind of thing. So we've intentionally made the new scoring system only consume those where possible, whereas the stable scoring used like metrics or used an algorithm, which means that you can't actually get a total score value from what we have stored in the database. You need to replay the map because of the way that maximum combo is calculated, and it's like on an ongoing chronological basis rather than being based on the final map statistics. So we've kind of like been aiming to allow us to reprocess these existing stores. So when we get to the point of combining classic scores with with Lazer first scores, we'll be able to process them and treat them in a way that can be cross compared. There's still a few edge cases for that, like what do we do with slider head accuracy, which is the concept that now in Lazer sliders need to be hit accurately, like in time, rather than just being within 300 milliseconds of the head. What do we do with that? Do we give Lazer scores bonus on top of stable because it's adding difficulty, or like how do we integrate them both together? And we haven't really finalized that yet, but that's like I'm just trying to give an
Oh,
which is to say that Smokey, go on. I saw you unmute there.
You just cut out.
yeah, I think he died briefly.
I cut out.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
Fell into the
At,
void.
at what point?
you're just trying to give some sort of and then like you cut out.
Okay. A general picture of where we are with Lazer and what is remaining to be done to get the whole leaderboards online. And yeah. So what you will see next in Lazer, where we stand right now, Lazer is pretty much multiplayer is in a better state than stable has ever been. It supports like unlimited users. We've seen like lobbies with hundreds of users. Score submission is in. PP is going to start appearing on like recent plays in your profiles and stuff like that. It's going to start being calculated for scores in the very near future, like in the next week. It's not going to show on leaderboards yet. The final step of getting scores into the leaderboards. First of all, any score you set today in Lazer, while I said that they are going to count for play count and stuff, they won't ever go on the leaderboards because we don't have, as I said, the final consistency checks in place, the anti-cheat, that kind of thing. Those are required for leaderboards because we don't want to break things. So there's still, I would say for full like leaderboard submission, we're looking at very least 3 months, and more realistically, I'd say about 6 months. Does that sound about right, Smiggy?
Anti-cheat and all.
Yeah, everything.
3 months is very optimistic. So 6 months is doable, I think, but
Yeah, yeah.
hard to say in the end.
I say 3 months, and then I'm like, we've never hit a deadline, and no developer has ever hit a deadline, so double it, and that might be more realistic. Yeah, but keep in mind that before that time, we're probably gonna have trials of this, and everything has been done in a way we can like roll back and undo Lazer specific stuff. So we may have a time period where Lazer is going to be submitting to leaderboards, or maybe we will have a new leaderboard display, which is like imported scores from the existing leaderboards plus Lazer on top, and like we'll preface it with like it could be reset at any point if we find issues. It's going to be like an ongoing iterative process, as it has been to this day. Like every system in OS, it's unfortunate that a lot of the more recent additions to the community, recent players haven't seen the development and how quickly we iterate on stuff because Lazer has kind of been off to the sideline. So it's going to be really nice to have a lot more people involved again in the development journey, I think, at least from my side. Like for me, like the most interesting thing, the thing which keeps me motivated with this project is the development journey and just the process and how we are kind of doing things differently from other games and it's still working. That's like impressive to me and fun. So yeah, that's like all I wanted to say about Laser. We hit 1 hour 10 minutes, so I will stop there. I
Just
can
about,
talk
yeah.
for days on Laser, but if you are also interested in Laser in the future, it's been available for like years now, and it is a very good time to install it on your PC, import your maps, and just give it a play. Even if you don't make it your, a lot of people are using just Laser these days. They're like, fuck stable, I'm done with that. I don't care about PP. But for people that do care about PP, I'd still say you should jump in, try classic mod, try all the things that exist, have a look at the playlist system, and just get familiar with things because it's getting close to the point where. And I guess the when is it going to be releasing? Well, the next steps for us are there's going to be a download link for Laser on the site. I think a lot of people have been asking for that. It's like it isn't official until you put it on the site, kind of thing. So
Makes
it's
sense.
gonna go on.
That makes sense. Carry on.
It's gonna be on the site as like a this is the future of us kind of thing, with a clear disclaimer being like no leaderboards yet or whatever, or no global leaderboards. And yeah, so we make the download link available. Then the next step is going to be leaderboards, I guess. There's really not much between those two. And pushing it as an update to stable. Well, yeah, as soon as we have like I've been avoiding doing that until we have functional parity with stable, and leaderboards is I think it's the only remaining thing. Am I missing something, Smeggy? Like we have a lot of quality of life things missing, but it's in a state where it's playable in every way, right? If you're not interested in PB, it's 100% usable as an OS client.
I think so.
Yeah, and in a lot of
I
cases,
can't.
there's new stuff like being able to relay out all your skins, and there's a lot of cool stuff in there. And as I touched on earlier in this meeting, the editor is not 100% of the way there yet. There's a few things missing, like tapping for BPM, better pattern management. There's a few edge case things that are missing, like that some mappers want. Being able to, the grid is missing, that kind of thing. But yeah, overall, we're in a very good state, and it may be closer than a lot of people expect to being pushed as an update. But yeah, as I was saying, I won't be pushing it as an update alongside cutting edge because the end goal is to have it available in the client alongside stable, beta, cutting edge, and laser, where laser is like, more cutting than a cutting edge laser. Get it?
I guess
Bleeding
because
edge.
someone just brought this up to me in a PM, like performance is, I guess, the other big thing,
Isn't it just
Yeah,
better
and
across the board?
compatibility.
yeah, for sure. If you haven't tested laser in the last few months, performance has improved a lot, but there's still edge cases like storyboards are shit. And old hardware is shit. Anyone which uses compatibility mode on stable is still gonna have issues until we bring that back in, because that's just an OpenGL level thing. And we still do have there's a huge amount of optimization headroom we have, like yeah. And we get
Anyone
started.
who uses Linux has to kind of use a little bit of a workaround because .NET.
Oh yeah, there's that. And there's also like the amount of vertices we're churning and stuff. There's a lot of optimizations we have left that are going to make. I mean, for me, Laser runs better on my PC than Stable does in every way. It uses less CPU. It gets more frames. It's smoother. There's lower input latency. But that's not the case for all hardware, and that's where we still need to improve things. And yeah, we have a lot of headroom for doing that. It's just like we've left some of the harder ones for last. But
I mean,
you'll. Go.
for me, I've kind of just waited until we've gotten to this point in time where like all of the big gameplay features that were missing were implemented before I tackled performance and went back to OS framework to really, nail down that stuff.
Yeah, but we're getting there. I think that's a safe way to leave this initial meeting, is that we are getting there. We're very close, and if you don't believe that, then go try Lazer yourself, and I think you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel, as it may be.
Promising stuff. I think we're a bit over time now, though.
Yeah, so I said 1 hour 10 minutes max, and we're there. So let's call it here. We won't be taking questions at this meeting, but for anyone that didn't catch the start, that is the whole point of these meetings. Isn't just for me to wank at you guys. It's to give everyone a chance to voice themselves, especially on ongoing matters. And we will be running these meetings every 2 weeks, and from the next meeting onwards, it's not going to be me talking. It's going to be mostly just accepting questions from the community and bringing up, as the team, bringing up any ongoing critical matters that we need feedback on. And we're going to be using these as an alternative to, more public forums like Twitter, where things can get lost in heated discussions.
So for anyone listening, you've
Yeah.
got 2 weeks to think of questions to bring up.
Exactly, and yeah, try and discuss your questions internally with your own OS communities, whatever Discords or whatever you're on, and write them up and have them in a good state, ready to discuss. And we'll definitely hear you out in 2 weeks' time.
Very good.
Cool stuff.
All right, I think that's it.
Let's leave it there for today. Thanks
Thanks
for
for
coming,
coming.
everyone. Good audience. Very
Very
quiet.
so much
Obedient.
applause.
Okay. Catch you guys later.
Cheers.